क्राइसिस का। तो हमें लगा कि हम कैसे आकर एक रिस्पॉन्स या सोल्यूशन या ऑल्टरनेटिव्स ढूंढ पाए इस पर। एंड वी थॉट दैट वी हैव leaders from the yesteryears like Gandhi, Ambedkar, Birsa Munda, उनके आइडियाज को कैसे हम कॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज कर पाए आज के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, कि can we take some principles, ideas from them and see if they're still relevant today? So that is how and why we started this conversation series. And aaj ka conversation series is with Rajni Bakshi. She is a journalist, author, written amazing, beautiful books on Gandhi, non-violence, and also the founder of Ahimsa Conversations, जो YouTube चैनल है जहाँ पर काफी लोगों के साथ जो ऑलरेडी नॉन वायलेंस के ऊपर काम कर रहे हैं, विचार कर रहे हैं, उनके साथ उनकी कॉन्वर्सेशंस होती है। बहुत ही बढ़िया YouTube चैनल है, एंड द कॉन्वर्सेशंस आर वेरी न्यूआंस्ड एंड रियली एक्सप्लोरिंग क्वेश्चंस ऑफ द डे टू डे एंड कॉस्मिक एंड ऑन मल्टीपल लेवल्स। सो इनको यहाँ बुलाने का भी यही intention hai, because she has a very keen lens of looking at, of marrying the idealistic with the practical and her understanding of non-violence. So welcome Rajni ji, and she's also my favorite person to talk on non-violence with. इनके साथ बातचीत करने में बहुत मजा आती है. So please welcome Rajni ji.
थैंक यू अरनाज, आप सभी का शुक्रिया. पहले तो आप सभी को मुबारक ये प्लेटफॉर्म क्रिएट करने के लिए, एंड थैंक यू सो मच फॉर मेकिंग मी पार्ट ऑफ इट.
Thank you for agreeing to come. तो since this also to the attendees, अगर इस conversation के दौरान आप लोगों को कोई सवाल है तो प्लीज इस chat में डाल दें, and we'll pick them up as and when we can. तो शुरू करते हैं. सवाल तो बहुत है, but given our context, I think the very first question to me is, as a young person, दुनिया में बहुत कुछ हो रहा है जिसको हमें लगता है कि अभी फायर फाइट करके रिस्पॉन्ड कर दे. तो एक वो है, और एक दूसरा तरीका है कि नहीं, हम अपनी काम को बिल्ड करते रहे धीरे धीरे एज अ रिस्पॉन्स टू व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, एंड नॉट कॉन्स्टेंटली बी इन अ सर्वाइवल मोड ट्राइंग टू रिस्पॉन्ड टू व्हाट्स हैपनिंग. तो इस tussle में how do we find that balance? How do we kind of say कि ठीक है, this is our non-violent response to what is happening in the world, which is in many ways direct and indirect violence?
Yeah. तो एक हाउसकीपिंग बात अरनाज के, how much Hindi and how much English?
We did a mix of both.
Mix चलेगा?
हाँ जी.
अच्छा. तो responding to what you just asked, देखो मेरा पहला तो सुझाव ये है कि हम खुद को काइंडनेस दिखाएं. और जब हम ये सोचते हैं, या देखो ये, if you're a young person, I hope in fact that if you're a young person, you often have this outrage about the things that are wrong. So पहली बात तो ये कि that outrage is very precious. Okay, precious in the sense that it would be much more disturbing if somebody is young, well-fed, well-housed, well-clothed, well-educated, and feels no trouble, or doesn't feel in any way disturbed. So yes, that's very precious, that when you're troubled and you have the urge to do something. So I want to just first, इसकी हम बहुत कदर करें, ये जो बेचैनी है. लेकिन अगर इस बेचैनी को हम इतना दिल पे लेंगे, इसलिए आज से कितने साल, मतलब 50 साल होने वाले होंगे, फिल्म बनी थी ना, दिल पे मत ले यार, या कम से कम ये एक फ्रेज है बम्बैया भाषा में, which means don't carry your tension, don't take tension over something, that kind of phrase. By that I mean that only if we are ourselves, the individual feels firmly anchored in something that is greater than themselves. Now, I don't want to go into the details here. लेकिन वन पॉसिबिलिटी, एक संभावना ये है कि वो जो हमसे, क्योंकि मैं इसमें भगवान और स्पिरिचुअलिज्म को अभी हम इसमें ना लाएं, लेकिन अगर आप ये मान लें या ये एक्सप्लोर करें, मानने को मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ, एक्सप्लोर करें कि ये जो मुझे कोई हार्म ना करे और मैं किसी को हार्म ना करूं, ना मुझे कोई दुख पहुंचाए ना मैं दूसरे को दुख पहुंचाऊं, अगर ये इसको हम एक बुनियादी असूल मान लीजिए, लक्ष्य मान लीजिए, विश्वास मान लीजिए, in English we'll say value. If this becomes a fundamental value, then this fundamental value is something that is much greater than and bigger than and beyond my mood of the moment and the hour. Or you know how I am personally, me is feeling in response to something else. तो मेरा पहला तो बेसिकली मैं जो आग्रह कर रही हूँ वो ये है कि इतना अगर आप परेशान हो रहे हैं कि जैसे आपको लग रहा है कि आज सुबह तक दुनिया नष्ट होने वाली है, तो फिर तो आपको डेफिनेटली पुल बैक करके कुछ पहले अपने दिल को संभालना चाहिए, क्योंकि देखिए धैर्य, दैट इज रेजिलियंस, मस्ट गो हैंड इन हैंड विद डिटर्मिनेशन. Without resilience and without you know, the staying power through the ups and downs, we'll be doing violence to ourselves. So that's, you know, just my primary thing. But जो आपका larger question है उस पे मैं अपनी favorite कहानी का, क्योंकि आपने मुझे गांधी के बारे में भी कुछ थोड़ा बहुत बताने के लिए कहा है, तो देखिए वो कहानी सब लोग जानते हैं, लेकिन फिर भी मैं उसको यहाँ दोहराना चाहती हूँ कि गांधी जी कितने हैं उस वक्त, बहुत यंग हैं, अब मेरे को एग्जैक्टली याद नहीं आ रहा, बट 20s में है अपनी उम्र के. हाँ नहीं, 69 ना, हाँ, ही इज अबाउट 24-25 और बिल्कुल नए नए साउथ अफ्रीका में पहुंचे हैं. अच्छा चलो, उन्होंने दुनिया देखी हुई है, वो लंदन वगैरह जा चुके हैं, तो ही इज यूज्ड टू बीइंग इन अननोन एंड स्ट्रेंज प्लेसेस, तो दैट यू नो उतना उनको वो धैर्य बन चुका था. बट लिटरली एक आध 2 दिन पहले वो साउथ अफ्रीका पहुंचे और एक ट्रेन पे उनको किसी ने बिठा दिया, क्योंकि उनका जो काम था वो एक 24 घंटे की ट्रेन की जर्नी लेकर दूसरे शहर में, और रात का समय है, ठंड है, और इस ट्रेन से उनको धकेल के प्लेटफॉर्म पे, लिटरली वो जो फिल्म में दिखाया गया है, गांधी फिल्म में, वो काफी एक्यूरेट है. उनका सामान भी फटका और उनको भी धक्का मार के निकाला, क्योंकि उन्होंने अभी सिविल डिसोबीडियंस नाम नहीं सोचा था, पर वहां पर वो वही करने लगे कि मैं तो नहीं हिल रहा, मेरे पास फर्स्ट क्लास टिकट है, मैं क्यों उठूं, तो उन्होंने धक्के मार के निकाला. अब आप ये देखिए, पहली बात तो यह है कि इस किस्से को अगर वो चाहते तो वो लाइफ लॉन्ग एक पर्सनल ट्रॉमा मान के उनका, क्या कहते हैं, परमानेंट डैमेज टू सेल्फ एस्टीम हो सकता था. तो इट्स अ ग्रेट क्वेश्चन कि क्यों नहीं होता. अच्छा, और सारे जो ऑब्वियस रिस्पॉन्सेज हैं पहले वो उनके मन में आते हैं, और बाय द वे ये सब उनकी बायोग्राफी में है, ये कोई कहीं सुनी बात नहीं है, उनका अपना अकाउंट है. भाग चलता हूँ यहाँ से, क्यों यहाँ पर मैं हूँ, और फिर रात हो, मतलब देयर इज नो अदर ट्रेन, नाउ ही हैज टू वेट, वो अगले सुबह ही उनको कोई दूसरी ट्रेन मिलेगी. छोटा सा स्टेशन है, हाँ था कोई, आई थिंक एक छोटा सा कमरा भी था, हाँ, और उनका सामान वो स्टेशन मास्टर ले गया, और अब वो इतने सहमे हुए थे कि उनको ये भी नहीं हिम्मत हो रही थी कि मैं स्टेशन मास्टर से अपना सूटकेस वापस मांग लूं, उसमें उनका कोट था. तो सारे जो आप एक साधारण व्यक्ति के मन में ऐसी परिस्थिति में जो मतलब डाउट्स और इरिटेशन और गुस्सा, जो ऑल दी negative emotions pass through, let me run away, what is this, why am I here, all of that. लेकिन somewhere through that night there is a shift. and he turns around. It's this is mera, ye mera hai. मुझे लगता है कि जैसे एकदम वो he's fuming and fretting, and then like he calms down and he says, wait a minute, this is not about me, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. I'm just standing here. This is something much bigger. This is about racism. It's not about me, the individual. This is not an affront or an insult to me personally and privately. There's a systemic injustice here. And if I accept it, I'm a coward. If I run away from it, I'm a coward. So then in this mood, he starts talking to all the Indians he meets, because he has gone there as on an assignment to an Indian merchant who had some legal issue that he wanted help with. And he talks to all the people and says, why do you accept it? And the rest is history. Now, the reason I like to tell this story is that everybody knows the full and finished Gandhi, who has become Mahatma, who is so remote, that figure on the statue, on the, on the note, on everywhere. So we think, oh, we can't do any of that. And maybe we can't. I don't know how much of the last 10, 15, 20 years of Gandhi, most of us can try to match. But this is a completely ordinary person. By the way, a person who is there because he has failed earlier. This is he's not there on some star assignment. He is there because he has no job. He is not able to get a practice going in Bombay. So he is also, struggling with, like a lot of young people, we have to struggle with, what is this? How shall we put it? Not finding easy early success. So now this is just an illustration, and I think I'll pause here so that you respond and you tell me if this did justice to your query and how should we take the conversation further, because it's a conversation, right? It's not a question of only you ask questions and I answer.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल आपने you did cover जो मुझे करना, because it also sparked something in me when we talk about कि उस time पर he was not big. He started where he is this very human form of a person, right? Not the image of Gandhi. So
extraordinarily ordinary.
Yeah. Yes. So one is to also kind of for us to break away from or break out of this paralysis of action. Because the crisis is daunting. It's big. It's like हर जगह से आ रही है. Like तो ये भी रहता है ना कि हम फिलहाल इसको बैंडेज कैसे करें. Wound को heal करना is still a secondary thing, but right now the need of the hour also feels like, to most of us, how do we respond in a manner that also puts out the fires that are going on. And then यही I think मेरा सवाल इसी के साथ है कि हम ये constant tussle में हैं, जूझ रहे हैं कि long term क्या हमारा response होगा, versus also how do we create this firefighting kind of a response, and where are we fitting, and what would Gandhi say at this time, because he did also kind of do क्या बोलते firefighting भी किया उन्होंने, और ongoing छोटे actions, localizations वो भी किया है, right? So आज अगर वो होते तो how would he respond? Like अगर
no, that's a very different question. That will have to be separated. Because उसपे I never do that, by the way. We'll come to that in a minute. I never presume to know what he would have said or done. लेकिन एक बात है अर्नाज, हम पहले ये फायर फाइटिंग के कॉन्सेप्ट को थोड़ा परख लें. Let's look closely at what you mean by firefighting. It's true that Gandhi was not, by the way, living in a sense of crisis. That time, I mean, in 1993-94, 1893-94, at that stage, Gandhi is not yet thinking of a pervasive and corrosive crisis. He is later. About 18 years later, if you meet Gandhi, he is very much aware, and but that's a separate story. So, issue, maybe we need to focus on the issue of injustice itself. Because, and I think that's why I think we should pause here I'll ask you that, do you want to, I mean, do all of us, and there are other people here in the group, I think, who are in the room, should we look at the concept of firefighting as separate from doing what you can, where you can, to build a long-term vision? Because the two things can be different. So, for example, the people who fought for saving the trees in RA, okay, that I think would qualify as an example of firefighting. Okay, we need to solve the carbon crisis, etc. And the world is fighting at many levels, but we, whoever the people who participated in the movement, seem to be saying that, yeah, but at the moment, we are going to just go and save these trees, or what the women in Chipko did, right? So that is firefighting. But I'm saying there are many other kinds of responses which will not seem appropriate. उनको आप firefighting नहीं कह पाएंगे, लेकिन वो बहुत direct, बहुत personal और बहुत tangible, immediate actions हैं. और इसमें मैं example तुम्हें देती हूँ कि ये मैंने आप लोगों के youngsters की meeting में देखना notice किया पहली बार, कि मैं अकेली होती थी with my little Bisleri bottle. आप सब लोग मेटल की बॉटल लेके आते थे, और मैंने आप लोगों से सीखा. हाँ, I said, wait a minute, ये देखो, ये सब एफर्ट कर रहे हैं, इन्होंने अपनी एक मेटल की बॉटल रखी हुई है, और उसमें वो दिन भर जहां पे भी होते हैं वहां से पानी भर लेते हैं. तो ये कितना टेंजिबल, कितना क्लियर, बहुत छोटा, बहुत इमीडिएट, एनीवन कैन डू इट. या ये जो है बहुत, मतलब आप सोचोगे कि जरा बहुत ही ज्यादा बेसिक बात है, वो सेपरेशन ऑफ गार्बेज, वेट एंड ड्राई. या आपका जो ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वेस्ट है, बैटरीज, और अब तो आजकल कितनी चीजें इकट्ठी हो जाती हैं, उसको गार्बेज में ना डालना, उसको एक ढूंढना, ये एफर्ट करनी पड़ती है कि भैया वो कबाड़ी वाला ढूंढो जो लेता है, कहीं किसी भी तरीके से उसको वो रिसाइकल वाली ट्रैक पे डालना. तो these are not firefighting actions, but they are significant in the small and immediate sense. Okay. अब इसके बाद मुश्किल सवाल ये उठता है कि, और ये डर अगर किसी को लगता है तो वो बहुत अच्छा है, ये डर बहुत जिंदा रखना चाहिए. इसको मतलब इस डर को कायम रखना चाहिए कि भाई मैं अपनी मेटल की बॉटल पे ही अगर बहुत खुश हो गया तो क्या, मतलब बाकी सारे बड़ी पिक्चर का क्या होगा. तो वो उसको जिंदा रखने से मतलब मेरा ये नहीं है कि आपको रात को स्लीपिंग पिल लेनी पड़े कि अरे यार अब तो 20 साल के बाद यहाँ पानी राइज होने वाला है, और यू नो मेरे बाहर की सड़क कवर हो जाएगी पानी से. दैट इज स्टूपिड टू लूज. आई एम सेइंग दैट इससे नहीं, okay, I take that back. I mean it is pointless. And when we say you're losing sleep over it, that's good. But let's not be literal about that. Because you are going to be more useful to the future if you got a good night's sleep, so that you could give your best thought energy and action energy to finding your connection to the larger struggle. तो वो अब कितने लोग कर रहे हैं, वो फ्राइडेज फॉर द फ्यूचर हैं. अभी हम वो बायो रीजनल की मीटिंग में थी, मैं आधा घंटा पहले, उसमें एक यंग आदमी, यंग मैन ने अपनी बहुत अच्छी प्रेजेंटेशन दी ecological restoration के काम चल रहे हैं. तो ये जो है, I think इसको हम, मेरी उम्मीद ये है कि ज्यादा लोग इसको क्रिएटिव सेंस में देखेंगे कि ये जो मेरी जो स्मॉलनेस है, मेरी जो फाइनाइटनेस, मेरा जो छोटापन है इस बड़े दृश्य में, उसको कैसे उसका भी कैसे आनंद लेते हुए वो बड़े दृश्य में मैं भी कैसे अपने अपने मतलब मैं एक खाली डॉट हूं, बट उस डॉट की क्या भूमिका हो सकती है उसमें लगे रहना, वो स्पिरिट अगर आप रिफाइन कर लेना तो फिर मटेरियल सॉल्यूशंस तो निकलते आते हैं. और वो कोई एक फिक्स सॉल्यूशन थोड़ी है, वो तो फ्लूइड ही रहने वाला है. It's going to be ever changing and dynamic. I mean, it should be. In fact, if it's not, then it means you may be running the danger of being stuck in a rut.
जी. सो इसी पे बिल्ड करते हुए दूसरा मतलब थॉट आता है कि लाइक टिल व्हाट एक्सटेंड, लाइक बिकॉज मेरे लिए फायर फाइटिंग इज अलाइव. लाइक यही जो आपने डिस्टिंक्शन बताया कि एक होता है फायर फाइटिंग एंड द अदर इज ऑन गोइंग वर्क, एंड मे बी one approach is that there are people who are only doing, say, the firefighting kind of a response.
तो इसमें तुम मुझे एक उदाहरण दो. तुम्हें जब तुम फायर फाइटिंग कह रही हो तो व्हाट इज ऑन योर माइंड?
ठीक है, तो फॉर मी फायर फाइटिंग इज रिएक्टिंग टू अ क्राइसिस. फॉर एग्जाम्पल किसी एक जगह पर जाकर वहां पे इट्स अ डेजर्टेड प्लेस, तो तुम जाके बस पेड़ लगाओ वहां पर, so saplings lagao because that is your response to something, versus people actually investing in reviving the biodiversity of that region in a way that, you know, it is ecologically sustainable us jagah par. And then also working with for example the mentality of people who are not deforesting. So I'm saying a little long term work as opposed to, for example, agar जैसे अरे का आपने उदाहरण दिया कि फॉरेस्ट है काट रहे हैं तो कैसे मतलब पीपल आर सेविंग, विच इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. तो as opposed to that also, like, or not, or as opposed to, in addition to that, also doing the work of preserving the forest, conserving it, community के साथ engage करना, उनके livelihoods उस forest से कैसे linked है, तुम्हारे natural resources उस forest से कैसे linked है, climate कैसे linked है, and that kind of systemic work as opposed to just a reactionary action. So that is how I look at
correct. तो इसको सिंस ये कल और से कल की बात हो रही है, तो ये 10-20 साल पहले तक what you're describing was known as constructive work. और मतलब immediately after independence, a whole bunch of streams, different streams of constructive work came up. Some were in the Gandhian tradition, some were not. Okay. So the old, क्या कहते हैं, division was between constructive work and protest work, challenging the power structure, etc. And any number of important leaders and thinkers in the first 40-50 years after independence have very clearly said that you need to do both. You know, at all times in society, constructive work, challenging the power structure, and outright, you know, trying to overturn the status quo completely, all these energies are relevant. It's not an either or. So, because, you know, when you use the word firefighting, what I think of is, say, in the personal sphere is that if you have somebody in your friend circle who is so severely depressed that they are sounding suicidal, so by firefighting, I understand any effort that is made to make sure that this person, doesn't take the extreme step. That's what I understand by firefighting. And then along with that, apart from whatever is being done by the supporting friends today, tomorrow, this week, you also try to come up with a whole set of actions that will pull the person out of that state of mind and, open new vistas for them in which they will feel better and they will have a new approach to life completely. So I'm just asking you to reconsider the term firefighting, actually, because I think that if it's too loosely applied, so planting a few trees is not firefighting, that's constructive work. You may say, I only planted 5 trees. What difference does that make? But it makes a very big difference because you didn't cut 5 trees. Firstly, there's that comparison. And, not everybody has the energy and the mental and physical and social resources to plant 5 million trees. So I would not belittle the significance. And maybe if I have the energy to plant those 5 trees, maybe I only have the energy to send a small check to the person who is planting 5 million. Or the ideas group, the network, like a Vikalp Sangam, that is helping its own community and other communities to connect the dots. So all the roles are important and significant. And in fact, nobody showed that better than Gandhi. That's why there was a room in his movement, literally, as they used to say, from prince to pauper. Because, say somebody is today's equivalent of a prince, say that, they're the manager, they own a company that, is worth so many $1 trillion or whatever. They can contribute by turning the rules by which the company runs. And that has been done. That has been done at many levels. Now, the outcome may not satisfy us. Because the ecological crisis is not improving at the moment. But that doesn't make the effort that person made to improve the quality, the human and ecological quality of his supply chain, it doesn't make that effort irrelevant.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. So फिर इसमें ये सवाल भी आता है कि then how do like young people who want to do constructive work also retain and sustain it for a longer time? Because वो यहाँ पर वो सिद्धांतों वाली बात आ जाती है where कि we say कि हमें धीरे धीरे ही काम करना है but consistently काम करना है. We want to do this kind of work. Despite, the tugs and pulls of other kinds of work that are, say, maybe very immediately required.
Give me an example.
Example के तौर पर
I should open the chat. Some people are. Go ahead. I'm listening.
आप पढ़ लीजिए, chat पढ़ लीजिए.
Oh, that was your welcome. Yeah. So John is there. Hi, John. John is saying what I was saying. Construction of the alternative is part of resistance and agitation. Absolutely. Thank you, John. Because, see, first of all, in a context where, say, enough people believe that, yeah, aisa hi hota hai. That is how the world is. In that, if you're pointing out and doing it diligently and repeatedly, that no, this is not how it needs to be. For example, if I'll give you the most raw example. I'm sure you've met someone who will say, yeah, it's okay, those people are sleeping on the pavement at night. No, they're used to it. They always sleep like this only. When you stand up against this kind of sentiment, even if it's a one-to-one conversation, in a situation where it has been accepted for so long that, yeah, some people have to live without a home. When you challenge that, even in a one-to-one conversation, so to say that this is unacceptable is first of all itself an action. Okay. But of course, that is not enough. So I think that's why what John is saying here is very important. First of all, you have to then first identify the problem. That's actually, it's a pre-part of what John is saying. Then secondly, having stated that X is not acceptable, then you begin to imagine, construct, design, struggle for what would be the alternative. Right? And that's why the very repetitive, determined demand for alternatives is itself an act of resistance. I remember in the Narmada Bachao Andolan, I can't remember who the official was. But all of us had these conversations with some official or the other at some point. Or generally some pro-dam person, who would say, no, so then you say, what is the alternative? And most of us used to say, look, that person who is being drowned, whose home and earth and lands are being drowned, he didn't ask you to build the dam, so he and she is not obliged to tell you what is the alternative. Okay, but of course, among those of us who were never ourselves the affected people, a lot of very, very highly capable people did answer that question, and they did construct multiple, ways in which the damage that the dam was going to create could be either limited or it could be stopped completely. We'll not go into the details here, but I just wanted to give that as an example. And then Suhas, I can't see the full name, is asking, however, just doing some very symbolic action without disturbing your comfort zone is not enough. Many stop just at that. And I would like to say something on this from my experience. We can, if you have time, I'd be happy to hear Suhas on that. But see, the thing about the comfort zone is, practical idealist. Okay, Vijay ji is saying, Namaste Vijay ji. But yes, of course, we must be willing to step out of our comfort zone. But there, I'm going to raise the bar a little bit. We don't often know what is our comfort zone. I mean, in the sense that we are not fully self-aware of it. And by that, I don't mean the comfort. Like now, this is a physical comfort zone. Okay, I'm sitting in my own room at the appropriate temperature. So that's literally comfort as in suvidha. But I know here, when we refer to the term comfort zone, we mean it's here. So that also, I would say everybody has their own, range, how far anybody can venture from whatever their understanding or their notion of comfort is. Again, if you're letting your friends and your comrades, give you a guilt trip that you are too much in your comfort zone, please don't waste energy on that. That energy is much better spent in then doing whatever you can do where you are. Dekho, very simple. And with all due respects, and apologies to anyone who think this is too light-hearted a comment to make. But I learned, I'm deeply indebted to a friend who said to me ages ago, ke dekho, if you are thinking, oh, I should sit and read this profound book on ecology, but actually, I want to just have a beer. And you spend all your time and energy, on this conflict. It's such a waste of time. Have the beer and then read that book. Rather than guilt tripping yourself that somehow drinking that beer was, a failure of your idealist self. Of course, no, please understand, I said that in a light-hearted spirit, but it's said in the understanding that, of course, there are limits, of course, there are boundaries. And I'm not at all suggesting that, they are irrelevant. But let's just say that I have a lot of faith in pretty much everybody's ability, to both respect those boundaries and recognize them. And I feel that a lot of the angst and individual suffering that we are witnessing among activists is not because of it's because I think we are loading ourselves with sometimes maybe unreal expectations. I don't know if the peer group is generating them or it's the atmosphere, because we do live in an atmosphere which demands relentless success. And it's like one of the great Rinpoches of the Tibetan tradition said to me once, he said, I'm finding this one problem is that many people who are coming to the spiritual path are also bringing report card with them. And they are constantly looking at their report card, ki mera kitna progress hua. So, how to cultivate? Maybe what I'm struggling to say is how to cultivate an anchor in deeper purpose and confidence, both in yourself, in your peer group, and in the cosmos, so that you can, and you should have fun in whatever you are able to do. And in a very natural way, definitely do what you can. My fear is that when anxiety levels are high, and in this case, it's a kind of, I don't know, very well meaning, but at the same time, it's a kind of performance anxiety. When that anxiety level is very high, in fact, there's a very big risk that you may fail to do what you could. But now I understand why to many people, what I'm saying will seem negative, because there is a very real fear that, oh, if we all only do our little thing, while we are doing our little thing, the world will collapse. That may be so. But the point is that you are at liberty to, try to locate yourself at whatever level. From the absolutely grassroots to, I don't know, whatever international forum or, that you feel is relevant. That option is there. But the thing is, actually, the syndrome is still the same. Suppose you are, you have a say in COP. There is only one say, na? And okay, now unless you want to come in, Arnas, but I'll wind up. I just one more thing and then I'll wind up. Sorry, 1 second. I just need one. So sorry. I have a gadget that is to come back from repair, and I knew it will be that person. So he needed directions to my house. Yeah. I mean, therefore, who could act on a bigger scale than Gandhi? If we think about freedom for, fight for justice. Okay, let's not limit ourselves to Gandhi. Let us, I don't know, which revolutionary leader do you want to think of? Everybody who even has a very large scale impact. Okay, take Che Guevara. He does. He has a huge impact across Latin America. And that's very powerful. I'm not saying it's not. But if anybody were able to contact his soul, he may also be dissatisfied. Na ki maine kya kiya. But that's the human condition. And maybe the real challenge is, how do you embrace the reality of that human condition in ways that strengthen you to do what you can do right now, here and now. And by here and now, I don't mean this literally only this moment, but in whatever is your domain of thought and action.
That dilemma or challenge is very real, where I think we do hold ourselves to extremely unrealistic maybe standards of even ideals. Say, agar non-violence bhi dekh rahe hai, to I mean, to kind of bring it to our lives and say, ठीक है, मतलब इतना ही हो पा रहा है, rather than being dogmatic about, say, non-violence or a person's ideas or a thought leader's ideas. So I think, and also add to that the mix of, say, social media ka jo value and ideals ka kya bolte hai, itna strong hold hai कि, you have to do this, or, you'll be cancelled. So jo, I think the pressure of being and saying things that are politically correct and, very scared to make mistakes. So wahi tussle hai between, मुझ पर violence ना हो, मैं दूसरों पर भी violence ना करूं. And where do I then locate, my work, my action, my response? And not just individually, but also then collectively, because then यही चीज organization level पर भी आ रही है कि अच्छा, मतलब as an organization, where do you come in? How much do you take on? What is your response? So I think this is where the paralysis is also very strong.
So that's why it's called analysis paralysis. Huh? It's a term. It's an actual term. No, but see here, I think you've really touched a nerve. Arnaz, I'm glad you brought it up. This, I'm afraid, has nothing to do with the process of change and the struggle for building the better society. What you've just described now is a cultural, psychological crisis that is independent of everything else that is happening. And maybe you could call it the crisis of excessive judgment, where so little is left to just be. So first of all, people are judging themselves. Then they are judging the person on the left, right, and aage piche and everybody. And we are judging ourselves and others for every minute action or step that they take. And in the process, maybe you never get to know the person as a whole, including yourself. We are not the sum total of our little moments, no? In some moments, we are not our best. You know, we have shown anger, or we have done something that we are not ourselves fully happy with, or that somebody has given us feedback. Yeah, this thing you did, no, it really hurt me, or it was bad. Okay, and then you are going to try and remedy that, or you're going to try to undo that. But that moment is not you. Neither is the moment, you know, when you are the warmest, bestest, most loving person. So I'm just saying that there is a huge amount of toxicity is generated. And it's in the whole atmosphere. It's not only in a specific group or between 2 or 3 people. By this constant and excessive judgment. First of all, because it's like bringing down iron doors and windows, which block the view to other dimensions of that same being. Quite apart from, you know, okay, I'll mention it, but we won't have time to go into it in any detail. I think maybe the easiest way to understand this is through the Buddhist understanding of the mind. Okay, that there are many different selves arising. And the human condition is about the journey of, in a sense, getting to know these many selves that arise. Yeah, but there is a very real risk here, a risk, a danger or a handicap, which may be structural, that maybe this is not what I'm suggesting, maybe it's not possible if life is lived at a certain pace. Maybe, because see, there's no doubt about it, that the pace, the cognitive bombardment, which we are today grappling with, the evolutionary journey of our species has not at all equipped us to deal with it. Absolutely not. So I know that a lot of you are already working on this. Wasn't it you, Arnaz, who gave up social media completely? One of you said to me, this is a couple of years ago, somebody in the BRM group one day said to me that I felt I was getting, a young woman, I can't remember who it was, who said, I've just gone on a complete holiday from all social media because I felt it had started to run my life, the young woman said. But I don't want to make this about social media. No. Again, that is just one small part of the larger picture. But what I mean here is much more almost physiological. See, even now, okay, you and I are both watching a screen. Okay, you're nodding or you blinked and I'm, seeing my own hands move or my expression move. That is very different from the kind of speed and variety of images that our cognitive machinery is receiving when we are in the audiovisual realm. It doesn't matter what the content is, whether the content is about peace or violence or what, that's a separate, it is relevant, but that's a different, that's another level of the whole thing. So both the cognitive bombardment is one issue. And on top of that, that at least, see, I'm now 65 and I don't remember anywhere, even in my youth, forget childhood, any such pressures for success. Everybody wants to be a success. I also wanted to be a star reporter. Yeah, I used to get a big kick when my byline came on the front page and all that. Yes, of course. I don't think it was, and all peers were like that. We all wanted to make a name for ourselves and all that. It's not, I don't think there was this raw and bleeding quality that there is now regarding worldly success and affirmation. I don't know. I think maybe I moved out of it. I'm now really sharing with you as a friend, Arnas. I am not at all knowledgeable about this in any professional or scientific sense. But then again, in this kind of debate, all our own experiences of the moment, the times that we live in, I hope are relevant.
जी.
Srishti has said, judgments and polarizations are too strong. I'm curious as to how, as we young people, deal with inheriting a world in crisis. Yeah, I didn't quite follow, Srishti. You want to just elaborate? The judgments and polarizations, yeah, of course, those are unprecedented. Actually, that is the other thing, na? That it's true that this sense of global crisis on the scale that it is there today maybe was not there before, except perhaps in the 50s when there was a very real fear that the world will self-destruct because US and USSR will have a nuclear confrontation. In my teenage years, this idea was still around. Then it faded. And it faded a bit before, the wall in Berlin came down and the USSR collapsed and all that. But it was nothing compared to what we have now. That's interesting, actually, because actually, let's see if we can find a speaker who can explain this to us. That it was actually no less an existential crisis. By the way, that is partly what gave rise to your big student movement in the US, right? Or what is now called the hippie culture. It was a cultural and I don't know to what extent it was political, except that, yes, it did generate pressure to force America finally to withdraw from Vietnam. Yeah, so I don't know, Srishti, I don't have a really profound answer to, inheriting a world in crisis, except that, just to keep a sense of proportion, please let us think of somebody, say, who was born in 1935. Why somebody? Let's talk about Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt was a girl of 16 or 17, living in Germany, from a bright student, everything. She didn't know till, I think she says, I don't forget what age she was, that she was not much more than a teenager when she first discovered that she was a Jew. Because the atmosphere around her changed and the Nazis came to power. By then she's in her early 20s. So what I'm saying is that we are not the first generation ever to inherit crises. But maybe we think that the kind of existential crisis that, and I'll keep talking about Hannah because, it's a discrete person, it's a real person, and we can all go and read about her and her writings. I'm not sure if you were Hannah Arendt in Germany, which is what happened to her, she had to finally flee. I'm not sure that was any less of an existential crisis than we are facing now. To the individual, of course, they are different, because somehow, and I don't know if this is valid, I don't have maybe the brain power to think this through, that whether a phenomenon like the Nazi killer machine was easier to address than, or solve or stop than ecological crisis. Maybe they are incomparable problems. That may well be so. But since we are talking about actual people here, I think it might be good to think of Hannah Arendt. And then for the next, 20 years, she's very prolific and all that, but what she goes through, so many things. So the inheritance of crisis is never, my mother was 16 when partition happened. She inherited a crisis. Not of her making at all. Yeah, I think we need a more, if we see things, let's see things in a 70 mm frame and then see how we feel. And by 70 mm, I don't mean just a film screen. Actually, I think let's take I take that back. I take that back. Let's try to see things in a 360-degree frame. See, we are also the first humans ever to see a visual image of our planet from space. I can't even begin to wrap my mind around, what that means, how that is changing us, how it will change us. I don't know. So sorry.
जी, तो सृष्टि जी भी यही कह रहे हैं कि crisis है part of the human condition, but maybe it is the kind of ecological collapse along with cultural, political, and social crises, which is unique for these times.
No, it is unique, Shrishti. I'm not underestimating that at all. The combination of factors is for the first time. Plus, as I said, the cognitive bombardment that is part of everyday life is a first time. So I'm not at all suggesting that, I'm not denying or contradicting that our species has never been in this place before. No, I'm not saying that. And yet what I'm saying is that at a different scale and in different ways, we can learn something or we can draw inspiration from those who have lived through different aspects or different types of crises before. And earlier today I've emphasized the importance of identifying a wrong as a wrong. Yeah, that's very important. At the same time, it's equally or more important to focus our energy on breathing life into the vision of what we want, of what we think will work. And there we are not alone and we are not first. Problem ye hai ke until now in human society, all the things you mentioned, cultural, political, social, all these processes used to unfold in slow motion. over decades and centuries, and you would get, I don't even know if I'm sure there are people who study this, but I don't know them, of this slow motion formation of culture. I don't know if what will happen now, because the speed element is not perhaps is maybe difficult to control, or not control, but how does the individual or groups of individuals find their own rhythm in this? But one thing is there, that maybe it would help us if we are self-aware. That actually, that is part of the problem, that we are responding to the crisis of speed by ourselves becoming victim and falling or into this expectation that, things must happen now or yesterday. And a lot of the polarization, or I don't know if it's a lot, but some of the polarization is because we, whoever, in this case, the we will be those people who want progressive change, have difficulty with those who don't want that change or who want it at a slower pace. I don't know if that's been very helpful. So Has is saying best way is to get out of competitive spirit. Okay, try to be honest to your own conscience, I think, or conscious, and be open to learn from people from socioeconomic strata lower than yours, how they face their struggle for life, and still find small joyful moments. So we learn to enjoy present and develop confidence to face life, to make it better for all. Absolutely. Around who should also get everything that I want, this developed sense of social justice. Small actions like planting trees at the climate crisis today is certainly not enough. Yeah, it's not, but it only gives a moral, ethical, mental strength to take some action to address climate crisis. Just a small example. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Suhas. Yeah, fully agree. It's an ongoing process. I don't think this is something, that has a point of arrival. The importance of the specific small, or we say discrete action that you can take is as important as your restlessness for how to somehow connect with the larger struggle. And the reality that, and now I'm back to the basics of the human condition, that even after literally moving heaven and earth, you may end up feeling you failed. Gandhi felt that. I don't know how many people are aware of this. On his last birthday, and it was his only birthday in free India, 1947, he, in his prayer meeting, I think it is, that he says that please don't wish me a long life. I no longer wish to be 125. I'm now, if you want to pray for me, please pray that I am liberated from this body soon. Why? Because he has, by then he feels, having lived through all the horrors of 46, 47, of the communal violence, that even the people he thought were convinced by him or were, following the path that he advocated, he feels that no, even they've never really accepted nonviolence. So Gandhi personally dies disappointed. But the story doesn't end there, it begins there. Hannah Arendt may or may not have, changed the course of any specific politics. I don't know. I mean, I don't know her biography that well. But, her writing, her thinking is going to shape people's actions for decades to come, maybe centuries to come. So, may each person find the scale that comes, naturally to them. And we see this among our friends, right? And then really the challenge is that, and I must say in this, for me, the big inspiration is Medha Patkar. That, because we know that the movement is made up both as much by a Medha Patkar as by the village woman who stood and held her hand when they were, offering Jal Samadhi, when the waters of the dam finally began to rise. And the world may never hear the village woman's name, but the movement was not possible without her. Now you will say, but the dam got built, so, what was the use? Kya fayda hua? Crisis so or deepen ho gaya. In a sense, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of divided opinion on that. Some people believe that the movement made further mega dams very difficult or impossible. I don't know. I don't have a view on that. But nothing is going to diminish the integrity and the determination with which that village activist, stood in the Jal Samadhi. You know, 100 years from now, when somebody writes a profile of Medha Patkar, it will all depend on the wisdom and the vision of that writer, how they describe the story. Because dams continued to be built, because we continued to destroy the Himalayas, all of that will be true. But is that the only story? बात तो ये है ना. Maybe if we are running, are we running out of time?
We are.
So then I just want to close on this. I was recently in a train. We both were with Medha. We were actually traveling back from the Bharat Jodo Yatra. And both of us didn't have, I mean, we had a waitlisted ticket and both waitlisted tickets did not come through. Anyway, suffice to say that somehow we ended up traveling together, and very nicely people made arrangements. Sorry, Suhas is saying no, but the villagers who were to be drowned right then 4 decades ago have survived, and their 4th generation children are not even learning at graduation level. Are NOE even learning?
Now,
okay. Now even learning at graduation level. Which is Suhas, I think if you're saying that, not only that life goes on, but in small and medium ways, it improves. Yes, of course, wo to hota hi hai. That of course is there. I was only focused on the dam itself. and what is the, both the literal and the symbolic, relevance of that mode of progress. But anyway, to cut a long story short, and I know you need to close, I just want to say that after a very long time, I had a chance to be in a public transport like this, on a platform, in the train, and the train got very late, so we were in the journey for much longer. How much, firstly, recognition. How many people recognized her? And when they recognized her, how warmly and admiringly many of them came up to her. And I bet you many of them don't agree with her politics. May not agree with her politics. But जो जिस इज्जत, जिस प्रेम से लोग पेश आए, I think let's focus on that. It's telling us something about, because I know we get so overwhelmed by the negative stories, okay? Because the opposite also happens. I'm not minimizing that, okay? But this also happens is what I want to say. हम इसको नजरअंदाज ना करें और इसको हम irrelevant ना माने. और वो क्या है? What I'm seeing in that is not, of course, it's about Medha personally. I mean, not personally, specifically, but it's in a larger sense, it is the admiration and the respect in this society for someone who stands up for those who, for others' well-being, who, in a sense, gives their life for well-being of the larger whole. That's what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm romantic, maybe I'm naive, guilty as accused, if that is the case. But hey, I had the mic.
Romanticism chahiye. I think we need some of that.
No, then you'll have to call me back so that I can challenge my own title to myself. No, it's very simple. वो कहते हैं ना, it is not your aptitude. It is your attitude that determines your altitude. So, let's close on that sense of how much positive energy is there in the species as a whole, enormously. So only, and that's a lot of the alternatives community does that only. It is constantly. And it's not just the alternatives community. A lot of people whom you will think of as very mainstream and not part of saving the planet, लगे हुए हैं मुन्ना भाई, बहुत forms में, बहुत तरह से. तो don't fret.
Thank you.
No, thank you all for creating this platform, and lovely to be here. I hope I made some sense.
Yes, you made sense at many points. In fact, it opened up more inquiry के लिए जो जगह होती है या, पर of course time की कमी है, but this does not end here. Like, this is the beginning of conversation.
Yeah. All the best. I look forward to watching the other conversations in the series. And again, thanks to all who are behind the scenes and making this series happen. It's very important. And thank you for the honor of inviting me.
Thank you.